What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Stay Fresh production. Today we're talking about the House of Creed and their latest release from this year, which at the time I'm recording this video has not been released yet. I think it's set to release early June, but this is called Aventus Cologne. Now, if you didn't already know, you probably did though, because it has been circulating YouTube at the very least. Creed decided to send out multiple samples to many reviewers and fragrance enthusiasts and people who have some kind of platform that they speak about fragrances, and sent out these little samples. Once again, Aventus Cologne is the name of this. This is essentially a flanker to the 2010 legendary, famous and infamous Aventus from the House of Creed, which is a fragrance that I really enjoy. I always have, and I probably always will. So they sent this to me. I've worn it a few times, at least 3 times, given it some full wearings. A little disclaimer, unfortunately, the weather here where I live has been a little unseasonal for this time of year. I was hoping it was going to be a little warmer, but it's actually been kind of cold and rainy. So I think that may have an effect. I think it definitely has an effect on how the fragrance wears on my skin in this environment. Now, right off the bat, it is just called Aventus Cologne, as you know, and that lends itself to be more of a warm weather, summery fragrance. So again, I think that's going to play into a little bit of my impressions of this fragrance, again, because I've been wearing it in weather that maybe I normally wouldn't, but I wanted to test it, nonetheless, and get this review out to you guys. So just bear that in mind. They sent me this little sample. Let me take it out here, and I've been through a little over half of it at this point, as you can see. So I'm going to give myself a fresh spray here. This was my scent of the day as well. I'm wearing it on my hand as well as around here, and I'm going to put a little bit more on just to refresh the opening here. So
it's nice, very nice.
the note breakdown here in Creed Aventus Cologne is a little bit stripped down, if you will. But this one, all we get in the top, there is ginger, there is bay rose, as well as mandarin orange, which you definitely get the mandarin orange. I'll get into that in a second. In the heart, we have vetiver, sandalwood, and patchouli, and in the base, it dries down to styrax, musk, birch, and tonka bean. Almost forgot. Tonka bean is an interesting note that they included here. I don't get much of it, but again, we'll get to that in a second. So, off the first spray, does it smell like Aventus? Yes, it does. Smell reminiscent of the Aventus scent profile. It's going to be very fresh and citrusy. You're going to definitely detect this woody presence in the background. It comes off a bit like a modern chypre. And that's kind of what Aventus is. I think Aventus is actually classed as a fruity chypre because of its fruity nature, which is coming from that pineapple. Speaking of pineapple, as you've noticed, there is no pineapple here. But nonetheless, mandarin orange, I believe, as a citrus, can be more on the sweeter side. So there's still a little bit of a fruity, juicy sweetness at the top, which I really enjoy. I love the opening of Aventus Cologne. Absolutely love it. The ginger is kind of there, and yeah, it's there. Definitely gives a little bit of a spicy kick. As it starts to dry, you get into the heart, and at least on my skin, that vetiver starts to come out and be the star of the show more than anything, but it still remains pretty smooth. It's not too earthy at all. It's well blended, as you would expect. And again, it's pretty smooth. I think it's the sandalwood that is keeping things kind of rounded and smooth. As it continues to dry, the vetiver stays present. I get a little bit of musk thrown in there, and it gets more woody with the birch and definitely a little musky. I feel like the woods, the musk, and that vetiver kind of remain on my skin. And that's mainly what I get. I don't really get the styrax, and I'm not actually super keen on that note. If I'm not mistaken, styrax, which is a balsam or a resin, usually comes off smelling a little leathery, maybe kind of floral or like lilac in a way. I can't say I got any real nuances that resemble that as it dried, but if they say it's in there, then it's in there. But I gotta test my nose better when it comes to resins. And again, the tonka bean, I don't know. I know tonka bean can carry multiple qualities, not just being sweet and vanillic. Sometimes it can be maybe more powdery and not so sweet, but here, again, there is a sweetness present right now. I think it is attributed to mainly the mandarin, but as it dries, it doesn't really get sweet at all to me. So, as you can probably see, I'm not super enthusiastic about this fragrance. To be honest, I'm a little disappointed, and I'm not disappointed because it's a bad scent. It's actually a very nice scent, very great fragrance. This is one that's going to be super well liked by others. You'll get compliments with this if you wear it. And again, it's just very pleasant to the nose. There's nothing unpleasant about it. But from Creed, we expect a lot. And to be honest, I prefer Aventus over Aventus Cologne. I definitely prefer the regular Aventus over Aventus Cologne. I'd rather smell that than Aventus Cologne. Even though I love the opening, but again, as it dries, for me, just me personally, it gets a little flat. And again, that's just me and my experience. Now, once again, bearing in mind the disclaimer that I gave you, in the hot weather, this might shine a whole lot better than it has here. And also, spraying from a full bottle could make a big difference too. I honestly don't really like sampling from little samples, from like testing from a sample, but that's all we have to deal with here. And I'm really grateful because obviously I received it for free, if I didn't say that already. So let's move on to the performance. The performance of this is actually decent. It is an eau de parfum, even though it is called Aventus Cologne. They did make it an eau de parfum. It has a higher concentration of oils, and that means it will stay on the skin much longer than a cologne would at the very least, but it stays there pretty good. I got a good 7-8 hours on my skin, and again, longevity was there. It wasn't super fleeting by the end of that. It was good enough for a day, a day out or a day at work. In terms of projection, I noticed that while I was indoors, I could detect it around me very well, and that was actually just with a couple sprays on the hand. I was getting wafts around me for about the first hour or so. Again, just on the hands. So full wearings on the body, the neck, the clothes is going to yield even better results in that regard. And after about that hour mark or so, it does start to settle a bit. Now again, maybe in the heat, the projection would be greater, but I couldn't tell you that, so I apologize for that. I hope to continue wearing this into the summer. Again, it should be warm right now, but it isn't, so what are you going to do? So honestly, I would say performance is nothing to complain about. It's going to be good enough, and again, especially from a bottle, I imagine it will be more than adequate. Now, let's get into the price of Creed Aventus Cologne. A 100 milliliter bottle of Aventus Cologne goes for $435 US. They also have a 50 ml size, which goes for, I believe, $325. Honestly, I don't think that's worth it. For this, I don't think that's worth it. For Aventus, honestly, I think the price can almost be justified if we're dealing with batches that actually perform, which I know is a problem for Aventus these days. The watered down Aventus, no, that's not worth it. But for a brand new full bottle, at least 100 milliliter, if you can find even earlier one like 125 milliliter, that's even better. That price I think is worth it. But for Aventus Cologne, I don't think so. Ambergris, which is a major component of Aventus, is one of the most expensive ingredients that you can buy on the market. In its rawest form, it is one of the most expensive. In fact, I think it costs somewhere around 71,000 US for just like a 3.5 pound lump. That's pretty insane. But there's no ambergris here. Yet the price has not changed in regards to how it compares to Aventus, which does have ambergris, which you pretty much would purchase at around the same price. So I don't know exactly what is in Aventus Cologne that is fetching such a high price tag. And I know there's markup, there's profit margin, I know all that comes into play. But that, honestly, when I learned that, I was disappointed that you don't have ambergris, which would explain the high price tag, but the price is still so high. And they're still doing the 100 milliliter and 50 milliliter thing, which they switched to a couple years ago. And I think that's been a mess, honestly, because the prices haven't changed as a result. Again, another story for another time, and many of you already know about that. So the price, I could not say this is worth it. At least not at full retail. If you end up finding a bottle later on, months after release, for a cheaper price, I'd say go for it. Obviously get a decant or a sample if you can. Again, super pleasant fragrance, easy to wear, gonna be a big compliment getter, and I think it's gonna be a good seller for Creed, at least for those who can afford it and who deem it worthy to buy. But for all of us fragrance enthusiasts who are looking for the next big thing from these big houses, this one is not it for me. I very much enjoyed Viking a whole lot more than I enjoyed Aventus Cologne. So, do I recommend checking it out? Of course. Do I recommend blind buying it?
Absolutely not.
But please go get your nose on it. This actually reminds me, I received a question from a member of the community. His name is Alex Boudry, and forgive me if I mispronounce your last name, Alex. And he had a very interesting question. And this is the question. Considering all the reformulations and batch variations, is it still worth it for someone to buy a bottle of Aventus in 2019? If this person can't get their hands on an older bottle, should they just get a new formulation or get a clone? Is Aventus Cologne a good replacement / alternative in that scenario? Okay, is Aventus worth it in 2019? In terms of getting a newer batch, at least at this moment in time, the batches that are going out into the major stores, onto the counters, I don't believe are worth the price. No, it's not worth it. If you can get an older batch, we're talking like 20, there's some decent ones in 2017, I believe, and even in 2016, there's really good ones. That's one I have. I'd say go for it if you can get a good price on that. In terms of clones, that's up to you to decide. If you agree with the idea of clone fragrances and it's something that you can deal with, then yeah, I'd say by all means, because all of them are cheaper than Aventus. That's just what it is. And Aventus Cologne, I don't believe, is a suitable alternative, especially because of the price. If it was cheaper, I would say maybe, but because you're essentially paying the same, again, I might be speaking out of turn, I think it's a little cheaper than Aventus at full retail. How about we just look it up? I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and guess and all these things. Because I'm on Creed's website, I'm gonna search for Aventus. There it is. Okay. Yeah, it's the same price. 100 milliliter bottle of Aventus goes for $435. So no, I don't think it's a good alternative if you're looking for something cheaper. Then no, obviously, because it's the same. So I'm ranting at this point. Overall, Aventus Cologne, very pleasant to me. Definitely reminiscent of Aventus, but different enough. It's a good representation of what a flanker is. It definitely has the DNA and it's reminiscent of its counterpart, but it does slightly go in another direction. It's more open and transparent, less dense. You don't have much of that oriental nature that you would have in Aventus, like from the vanilla and things like that. Yeah, in that regard, if you like it and you want it for those functions, it's great. Otherwise, not worth the price. Not a good alternative, and I don't know, not the best release in my opinion. The fact that we waited for this, I'm just like, okay, I'd like to just see what the next one is. So I'm moving on, but I want to know what you guys think down below. Let's talk about it. You guys take care. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.